From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on July 16th, 2024, from my hotel room here in beautiful Brookfield, Wisconsin. Yes, we're about 30 minutes away from downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the Republican National Convention's going on.
Milwaukee.
But on this episode of The Lede, we bring you a recap of some of the big moments from day one of the RNC here in Milwaukee, and a preview of what's in store for tonight's program, including former Governor Nikki Haley, who was set to speak in prime time from the convention hall. I also have an exclusive, wide-ranging sit-down interview with Governor Henry McMaster, talking about everything from the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump's life and how that has changed the race, to the role of age in politics, and his thoughts on Ohio Senator Vance being picked as Trump's running mate. And the governor was singing the praises of who he was leaning toward for vice president. That was Senator Tim Scott. You'll hear about that in a minute. Scott spoke Monday evening, and we have part of that rousing speech for you as well. It's a very classic Tim Scott speech. Of course, we also want to hear from you. Give us a speech. Call us 803-563-7169. Give us a rundown of what's going on in your world. We want to hear from you guys when we get back from Wisconsin. We'll have our wind down sections ready to go again, but we want to hear from y'all. Fill up that hopper at 803-563-7169. All right, welcome to day two of the Republican National Convention from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Let's catch you up on what happened after we recorded our last pod Monday afternoon before I bring you up to speed on today's events.
Okay.
Former President Donald Trump was formally nominated at the convention. He received support from each delegation during a roll call vote in the Fiserv Forum. All 50 of South Carolina's delegates went for Trump, and Governor Henry McMaster, a longtime supporter of Trump's, made the nominating speech.
Madam Secretary, I'm Henry McMaster, proud, happy governor of the state of South Carolina, lucky husband of First Lady Peggy Jean Maccabee McMaster. Great state of South Carolina, the Palmetto State, from the mountains to the sea, where we've been fighting for liberty since 1670, where the Revolutionary War was won, where in 2016 Donald Trump won his first primary victory ever, ushering in the Trump era of American history. The great state of South Carolina proudly cast all 50 of its votes for President Donald J. Trump.
We'll hear more from the governor shortly as I sat down with him this morning to discuss the latest about the Republican Party. But I can tell you that the governor was on the floor yesterday. We were chatting with him. He was being interviewed by several news outlets, including CNN. He was talking to Phil Mattingly and Wolf Blitzer. And I think he was trying to get Phil Mattingly to move to South Carolina, like so many folks are already doing. No word if that was successful, but we have our interview with the governor in a moment. But going back to the convention hall, after that formal nomination process happened for Trump, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance was announced and nominated as the vice presidential nominee, ending months of speculation of who it could be. This move provided a big headline for the day and helps shift the news cycle somewhat from fallout coverage of the assassination attempt against Trump just days ago. Trump did attend part of the convention Monday evening with a bandage over his right ear. That was a rousing moment there in the convention hall. People were stunned to see him. They were pumped up. He was flanked by his Secret Service agents, and even the governor was in the hall and said that it was quite the moment to be there. And that's something coming from Governor McMaster, who has been to now 10 Republican national conventions. Again, we'll hear more about his favorite moments in a minute. But Vance, who is now the VP nominee for the Republican Party, is expected to give his primetime speech Wednesday evening, so tune in for that then. Of course, Monday night there were several interesting speakers, including Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, North Carolina gubernatorial candidate Mark Robinson, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, who also spoke to the South Carolina delegation this morning, but that was a closed press, so I couldn't give you anything from that. Florida Representative Byron Daniels also spoke, as well as South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem and South Carolina's own Senator Tim Scott. Now, the latter two were floated as potential VP picks, but alas, Senator J.D. Vance, he beat him out. But Senator Tim Scott did get the crowd fired up in Milwaukee Monday night.
Listen, if you didn't believe in miracles before Saturday, you better be believing right now. Thank God Almighty that we live in a country that still believes in the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Alpha and the Omega. And our God still saves, he still delivers, and he still sets free. Because on Saturday, the devil came to Pennsylvania holding a rifle, but an American lion got back up on his feet and he roared. Oh yeah, he roared. Yeah, yes he did. You see, America, this is a difficult time for our nation. Inflation is crushing families. Illegal immigration is crushing American workers. Failing schools and victimhood culture are crushing our poorest kids. And the weakness of the commander-in-chief has invited world wars all around our world. Joe Biden is asleep at the wheel and we're headed over a cliff. We're not just the grand old party of the past. We are the great opportunity party of America's future. And there's only, hear me clearly, and there's only one person who can make that vision a reality. Donald J. Trump.
That was Senator Tim Scott speaking Monday evening before the RNC. Now today, Tuesday, we caught up with Governor McMaster, one of the state's 50 delegates who are in Milwaukee. I spoke with the governor about several topics, but like all my interviews this week, we start off by discussing the assassination attempt on Trump's life.
This thing Saturday was shocking as well. But I'll tell you, President Trump is an unusual man. People get into politics and you used to criticism, and some fair, some unfair. People have strong opinions about things. But I have never seen such criticism, I think unfair. Some people don't like him, and that's fine. Everybody doesn't like everybody. But the attacks, these legal attacks, that is I think the improper, unethical, illegal use of the courts. My opinion was then and is now that none of those cases have any substance to them. And one by one, they're getting thrown out. And I think that in the end, none of them will stand appeal. But you look at Donald Trump, who from the very moment he announced has been under attack by his opponents, the left, and people in between. And they've tried to put him in jail. They've criticized his family, they criticized his work. And the only thing left was something physical like this. And then there that came with an attempt at assassination. But for his turning his head slightly to look to his right, that bullet would have gone in his head and he'd be dead right now. And that was on the minds of people last night. And I tell you, it was on his mind too. When he came walking out, that was his first public appearance. And I was sitting up there in that family box, and I could see the tears in his eyes when the people were cheering and supporting him. And you don't see that sort of thing very often, but I saw it then anyway. So the enthusiasm, the love is the right word, the support, the excitement in that arena yesterday and last night, particularly when he came out, was something that this is my 10th Republican National Convention, and I have never seen anything like that. This is a rare time. I'd like everybody to know, whether you for him or against him or whatever, this is a rare time in American history. and we have to be sure we do the right thing.
Governor, you said it was on everyone's minds. It's, of course, still very fresh. When we think about what could have happened, the horrible possibility there, what could have happened to this party, with this country, do you think? I mean, we heard former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy say we were within a hair's breadth of a potential other civil war. Do you think it would have been that extreme, or how do you think things could have been?
I don't know. I mean, the Civil War was quite something. Another Civil War. I don't know. I guess maybe the historians will have to try to look at their crystal balls and look back and look forward. But I think it would have been a period of great chaos for us, because here we would be, if he had been disabled, let's just say that, then you can't postpone the convention. So what would have happened? And then what would have happened without him? I believe that he is the only man on the scene today that can do what I think and everybody in that arena thinks is necessary right now. He is strong. As I said one time, he is the face of strength in America today, and without his perseverance, I don't know what would happen. And in the arena, in the convention, I think that no telling what would have happened. Technically, I think there would have been campaigns going on, different candidates presenting themselves and trying to get elected, and we'd be working through the different delegations trying to get the votes. But there's only one Donald Trump, and just like there's only one Ronald Reagan. I remember him very well. I got to be with him a little bit way back, admire him, and I admire Donald Trump. In fact, I think they're a lot very much alike.
Governor, Monday evening, you cast all 50 delegate votes for former President Donald Trump for his nomination. He was formally nominated. Shortly thereafter, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance was also announced as his running mate. What are your thoughts on Senator Vance being named his running mate? And if you've met him, if you have interactions with him, what are your takeaways from that?
I don't really know J.D. Vance. I know the others. Tim Scott made a great speech last night. I think that's a choice. A president or any leader in a position like that has to make their decision on the person they think will be the best to work with them. And there's a lot more to working with somebody than just your resume and your experience. There's some other potential candidates that had a lot more experience than J.D. Vance does, but his has been very important experience. And he is, I think he's got a great future. But the main thing was that was, as it should have been, that is a personal choice. And I can see the two men, I can see them, knowing Trump fairly well, I can see them working together very well, and that's important. You have to have some sort of a bond where each knows what the other is thinking without having to tell them. And I think because of his age, because of his looks, because of his history, that is, I'm speaking of J.D. Vance, I think he is probably the perfect choice. And if President Trump thinks so, then it's correct.
Now, were you hoping maybe Senator Tim Scott would have been his running mate at some point?
Tim is great. I could see pictures of that as well. That would have been a great thing. Tim Scott I've known him for years, and in fact, when he was running for county council, I was party chairman, and he says we sent him his first campaign contribution to the Republican Party, and he's just gone up and up. Tim Scott is an inspirational figure, as you saw. So I was envisioning all of them, and I could see that as well.
Governor, you've been to 10 conventions now. Tell us some of your favorite moments. 2008 had some big moments, 2016 as well. Give us some of your favorites.
Well, those were moments. That was nominating President Trump was terrific, and I think one moment was it's the '96 convention, and Strom Thurmond was there, and he walked out on the floor, and of course people recognized him and started clapping and everything. And this fella came by, an older guy, came by and said, "Hey, Strom." The senator stood up. He said, "I'm," whatever his name was, and they shook hands. And he said, "Do you remember, you you gave my wife a big kiss in the Peach Parade in 19 whatever it was. The senator says, well, where is she now? Bring her down here and I'll kiss her again. He was a legend, but there have been a lot of great moments. That thing with the Code Pink, I think it was. I was sergeant at arms. That was in 2008 in McCain, and we were on the lookout for them. We were supposed to be keeping people in and out. I had a bunch of folks helping. They were doing the work, and all of a sudden, right around from where I was in the convention, this woman jumped up and she had an overcoat on. That's how she got in, but her clothes were pink. So she got up and started hollering something. So I was supposed to go do something. So I and some others went over there and we gently escorted her out. She didn't fight. But the question then had all these law enforcement people outside in the concourse, and they said, now what are we going to do? General, what are we going to do? I said, well, let me talk to them for a minute. So I think there were two of them there about it. So we talked. They said they wouldn't do it again. The question was, should we charge them with something? Or I said, promise you won't do it again, we'll let you go. They said, we promised, and they left, and I went on back in. But another thing happened then. Brian Sterling was one of my assistants, who, of course, is running the Department of Corrections now. And Brian was at one of the gates. They had tight security, and nobody was supposed to get in, wasn't supposed to bring anything in that wasn't authorized. So somebody called and said, there's a lady out here that's got a big bag that has some clothes in it. Looks like a dress, and we don't know who she is. What should we do? So then they got Brian on the phone, and Brian said, yes, they won't let her in, but she says that she has clothes for Sarah Palin to make her speech in tonight. That's when she said the difference between a soccer mom and lipstick is lipstick. Yeah. Soccer mom and candidate or something, whatever it was. But so I said, Brian, do you think she's telling the truth? He said, I think so. So they let her in, and sure enough, a little while later, here came Sarah Palin walking out on the stage and had on those very clothes. And I wonder what would have happened if Brian Sterling had not been there to let her in.
That was Governor Henry McMaster speaking with me there earlier today. You can watch that full interview. It's online at youtube.com/South Carolina ETV. It's about 20 minutes long. Didn't want to bombard you with the entire interview, but a lot there to it. Now on tap for today, we will see former Governor Nikki Haley speak in primetime this evening. Haley served 2 years as Trump's ambassador to the United Nations, and she became the last Republican presidential candidate between him and the presumptive nomination. Haley was originally not invited to the RNC, a move her spokeswoman said she was fine with. Haley had previously released her 97 delegates to vote for Trump last week, but following that attempt on Trump's life, Haley was invited. We'll have part of her speech for you tomorrow, and the program starts up tonight at 6 p.m. East Coast time. And on Wednesday, we'll be watching 1st District Congresswoman Nancy Mace's speech from the convention, as well as VP candidate J.D. Vance. So stick with us and check out our live updates on southcarolinapublicradio.org, my own Schechter's reports during Morning Edition and All Things Considered newscasts, and much more on our social media platforms, including at scledepod on Instagram and Twitter. The South Carolina Lead is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lead, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina. I was too busy to send you goodbye horses that I didn't send you a script. I was like, he's going to crack up.
Oh, he's going to love it.
Just wait.